Hi everyone, Sandman here. This video is brought to you by a donation from Mr. Anonymous, and here's what he has to say. Hi Sandman, I'm in my early 50s, married for many years to my high school girlfriend. Many of the problems faced by young men nowadays, including my own sons, we simply did not have. No history of the carousel makes a difference in the specialness of a relationship. We generally follow the traditional roles that were successful for thousands of years. We have lived in a frugal way and tried to stay focused on the important things in life. But nothing is perfect. I've made a few notes after viewing many of your videos and added a few observations of my own. I don't have a specific question but would welcome your comments on my notes or any other topic of your choosing. Note number 1. MGTOW economics. The price of poon has become too high. A large supply at a high price, and the shrinking demand means that the market does not clear. MGTOW is the segment of potential poon buyers that refuses to buy at current prices. That price can be measured financially, emotionally, in life fulfillment, sanity, and self-respect. MGTOW serves a larger purpose, knowingly or not. MGTOW and the rational refusal of men to buy will eventually cause the price of poon to fall. The worst women and their useful idiot manginas now want to coerce MGTOW and others to buy at the current price. Vicious shaming tactics and proposed unmarried man taxes are examples of this. Coercing men into yet another involuntary transaction at the cost of their lives will not work in a large system that is alternatives for red-pilled men. Eventually, female behavior will change, though it might require a degree of collapse and a radical reform of their supporting institutions. The MGTOW trend could also go to extremes. Can you imagine the response of men buying eggs from higher quality women, completely bypassing the lower quality ones, and then raising children solo with the well-behaved robo-mom? MGTOW is right to hold a hard line. Number 2, MGTOW in your video essays have value for married men. Underlying MGTOW is a basic desire for fairness. A relationship that structurally always gives advantages to females over males is bad for both. MGTOW red pills identify quite a few females and male behaviors in a perspective, blunt and unapologetic way. I have used these observations for myself as well as to red pill young men around me. I want them to see the truth, make their own clear-eyed choices, and live fulfilling lives. My third observation, many of the female behaviors that you discuss fade somewhat but don't go away. They must be managed. Shit testing and other forms of manipulation always bottle up. There are varying degrees of know-all, but there's never a 100%er. Men in long-term marriages should expect to push back if they want to basically live real lives. In my experience, men tend to settle differences with some form of negotiation, then more or less hold on to that agreement. Their interrelationships tend to be relatively long-term and stable. Relations and agreements between men and women are far less stable and constantly tested. Men in marriages cannot simply give up, put their heads down, go into yes-dear mode for their last few decades of life, and expect anything other than a miserable life. And playing only the defense means that you can lose or draw at best. A man's mind is indeed biochemically muddled around women, especially in emotional moments. MGTOW red pills basically help men recognize bad female behaviors that they could easily recognize and never accept from other males. Occasionally playing offense and deliberately pushing back are required to keep a long-term relationship respectful and viable. Young men deciding or falling into marriage should be crystal clear on this. Both people in a long-term relationship can be reshaped. Most examples are of a man beaten down into a shadow of what he once was and once could have been. Men should realize that they can also reshape the woman to some degree. Her nature is still what it is, but if there's more to the relationship than her seeing him as a spreadsheet, even a long-existing relationship can be reshaped and improved. I enjoy your work and suspect that it's helping more people than you realize. Well, Mr. Anonymous, thanks for your donation, topic, and thoughtful comments. I'm glad that I can put information out there that can help men wake up after marriage, and during it for that matter. I agree with you that I get a lot of men out there contacting me after they've already gotten married, and now they don't know what to do next. A lot of the time they're trying to manage their wives only after they've learned about female nature. Yes, you can try and manage a wife after you wake up, but it's not all that fulfilling. It's not just a matter of having occasional defense and pushback, but constant pushback is required for you to keep the relationship stable. For myself, I'm an overly analytic guy, so I can't do that and react as quickly as I need to in order to put a woman in her place. I have to think long and hard sometimes before I answer someone's questions here on YouTube. So for me, a long-term relationship with the average typical woman doesn't work because I'm unable to put her in her place as required. I get analysis paralysis instead of improvising. There are classical musicians and then there are jazz musicians. I'm definitely classical because I need a score in front of me when I'm playing music, which amounts to a plan. A lot of guys get married and have one specific plan in mind for marriage, and then they learn about MGTOW and suddenly they want to throw their plan out the window and start another one. But you can't reshape a woman. I tried this for 15 years and it simply didn't work for me. Even if I managed to reshape them a little bit, it was only roughly 10 to 20% of what I wanted. Meanwhile, the woman I was with reshaped roughly 50 to 60% of my behaviors because I was in love with her and wanted to make her happy. You also brought up this idea that poon is now too expensive, and most men going their own way, all they have to do is do a cost-benefit analysis and have decided that it's pretty much not worth it. Some men, as you mentioned, also understand that buying a higher quality egg from a woman to have a kid with makes a lot more sense with regards to having the best possible offspring. This is something that I've been looking into for a while now. Why should men have to settle having a kid with an average woman that can basically be taken away at a moment's notice when they can actually have the highest quality ingredients before making their omelet? The price for cheap women is way too expensive these days. So of course women are trying to basically be good salespeople, and they're going out into the world and convincing men that women are still worth it. That's what any good salesperson would do, and I don't blame them for this. If a guy says he's worried about getting married and losing his money, then they call him selfish. When he says that he values his emotional stability and peace, they say a woman will civilize him and make him more emotionally stable. When he says he wants to live out his dreams, they once again say that he's selfish once more, thus shaming him and making him feel bad for his own desires. Now I want to get down to discussing the main topic of basically being woken while married. I get many guys sending me video requests asking me what I think they should do because they're married and they have a kid. They realize the situation is bad because they've now taken the red pill and they want to leave it because they recognize that the price is too high for the woman that they bought, but at the same time they have a kid and they don't want to lose the emotional access to that kid because of a nasty divorce. So it's always the same catch-22 situation. You're damned if you leave the relationship and you're damned if you don't. I feel really bad for most married guys that stumble onto my channel because they say things like, I got married last year and there's a kid on the way and I wish I learned about MGTOW a lot sooner. Guys like that are in relationships that are relatively stable and as happy as can be, and even then they basically still see it as a big mistake getting married in the first place. If only they had come across the MGTOW channel a lot sooner, they never would have committed to the woman that they're with. They simply didn't know the price they were paying. As for you, Mr. Anonymous, you see that women like your wife provide you serious value, are loyal and enrich your life in many ways. If I had found a woman like my mother out there, I would have had no hesitation getting married and staying committed. I also tend to put my mother in her place when she tries to control me or talk down to me. But even still, that takes a lot of my emotional energy, and sometimes it takes me roughly 3 to 4 hours or longer to feel like my normal self after I've had a fight with her. Guys that awaken after being married probably take longer to emotionally recover than before they swallowed the red pill. They pick up on things they never saw before, and this could lead not only to enlightenment but also an urge to subconsciously sabotage the relationship. Suddenly the man feels resentment and falls out of love with the woman, and she basically picks up on this. This is one of the reasons why I think that women try to keep single friends away from their husbands and boyfriends, because the single guys show their men what they're missing out on. But now women also have to monitor a man's YouTube viewing to see if he's watching MGTOW videos, because they might actually influence him to walk away from the relationship, or at the very least question it. The idea that you can either love women or understand them, but you can't do both is the big thing in this particular equation. Men that wake up while married have a greater chance of falling out of love, and many do, and the woman will often sense this because suddenly her man will start acting in rational ways, and perhaps standing up to her bad behaviors, instead of just letting them slide like he once did before. That's the greatest danger for married men listening to my videos. They become aware and then they sabotage their relationships, even if all they're doing is trying to learn more about female nature. I was learning about MGTOW around the same time my long 10-year relationship ended, so it certainly influenced me in part with regards to leaving my partner. So to some extent I understand what guys are going through. For me, I ran into soft men's rights materials before I finally started breaking off into Stardust videos shortly after my relationship ended. I sometimes wonder how I would have felt if I had actually learned about female nature while I was still in my 20s or even before that. The trouble for most guys learning about MGTOW when they're already in a marriage is they might have an existential crisis. Suddenly the reasons they have for living make zero sense because they see the game for what it truly is. Their partner is now seen as their master instead of a partner, so it freaks them out. Suddenly he might realize that he's been failing all the shit tests, so he suddenly starts trying to pass them all. This spooks the wife and she suspects that something is going on. At this point, he's already set up a pattern in a relationship where he's a doormat, so it's too late to turn himself into the Sean Connery version of James Bond, putting women in their place. If he does make himself more assertive and aggressive, I believe that most women will fight back against this, and they won't want to share the power that they have with a man that has suddenly found his manhood because of MGTOW. My biggest tip to the married men listening to this is not to lose your mind and do something irrational that you might resent later. You know that you didn't marry an Walt. You know she doesn't exist, and you know you want to go your own way, but the costs of doing this are very high. What's a man supposed to do at this point? You need to think deep and hard about your situation. If I was back in the tail end of my 10-year relationship again, I probably would have come clean to my partner and explained clearly what I wanted from life and told her more clearly what I was actually going through in my head. Instead, I bolted for the door like a cheetah and didn't care too much about her feelings because she spent almost a decade trampling on mine. I know the relationship was not salvageable because I wanted something different, but I could have at least explained my point of view so that she understood where I was coming from. She still to this day has no idea why I decided to leave, and I never told her the truth. I didn't want to give her any closure and get back at her for not being upfront about her intentions, but that's a story for another day. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks again, Mr. Anonymous, for your donation. Also, don't forget to smash the like button and check out the MGTOW mystery link as well. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the premature marriage away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.